Hello everyone, I'm Wave, and today I'm going to be talking about the Tsukihime Remake, which is a visual novel I just finished reading up not too long ago. I do think it's an action-oriented visual novel that teeters a fine line between being great and being kind of disappointing. Anyways, let's get into it. So before I even talk about maybe story-wise or anything else, I want to talk about at least some of the technical aspects of the game first. First and foremost, it's not available on PC, so it is only on console. So you're going to be playing on either Switch or PlayStation. Do note that PlayStation is censored, even though honestly there isn't a whole lot to censor, but most people are probably going to go with the Switch version. One thing that I do think is also a little bit like I noticed it immediately while playing the game. I guess it's going to depend on your overall reading speed, but notice how most visual novels, every once in a while, when you transition between two scenes, maybe you're playing like a Ubisoft game and it has that little like loading screen that shows character and they say the title and then it moves on to the next scene, or like in other games, it's just going to be black screen transition into the next scene. Tsukihime Remake, I don't know what's going on, if it's just because of the graphical fidelity of the game, but there is a lot of like non-skippable, and by skippable I mean like, tapping in order to go to the next like page of text. It's non-skippable, and that is a very like long transition of black screen fade out fade back in. You're gonna notice it within the first few hours of playing it, is that there is gonna be a lot of like black fade ins. Now another thing that I do think as far as technical fidelity, it kind of comes up when it comes to how the game progresses, in that, if you've played Fate Stay Night, Tsukihime is pretty much the same deal, where there are choices, and if you fail at the choices you'll end up game overing, and then you'll get like a little cute little sequence that'll show, okay, here's what you did wrong, maybe you should go ahead and transition to doing this choice instead. And that is obviously where, everyone's favorite little gremlin, Neko Arc, shows up. She'll tell you, what you need to do. But the way that the game is structured, in that how one of the routes, there's only two routes in the game, I'll get into that in a second, but you're forced to play one ending in order to get another ending. So you are going, like, everyone's going to have to do this if they want to 100% the game. You're going to have to replay portions, and Tsukihime Remake has a flowchart, which is quite nice. It allows you to like skip back to previous choices. But even then, I feel like, it's 2024. We should be having maybe, skip to next dialogue choice rather than having to flowchart back to a choice and then having to then manually skip through the rest of the game, and it's going to take you some time to get back to where you need to be. It's a small nitpick. I know every Ubisoft game has that quality of life for skipping to next dialogue option. Every other visual novel doesn't have that for some reason, but in Tsukihime Remake it just feels a little bit more emphasized as like a problem. Now let me get into the actual meat of the actual game. So Tsukihime Remake is not the complete game from the original Tsukihime. I've never played the original Tsukihime. At this point, maybe honestly I should, but we'll see. Hopefully the continuation of the game comes relatively soon. So what is available now is only two routes out of, honestly, I don't know, I think there's like 6 or 7 routes, I'm not entirely sure, but there's only Arcuid and Seal route. So there's 2 routes, and both are, it's linear progression. You're forced to play Arcuid route before playing Seal route, which feels a little odd. I feel like they could have opened it up. The way they ended up doing the story definitely works towards the way that they ended up doing it. Is it how I would have preferred it? Not particularly. Arcuid route is solid. I do think it is maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's alright. It's fairly enjoyable though. Action scenes are quite good. I think out of any visual novel that I've played so far, Tsukihime Remake has the best overall way of showing combat in a a text form. There's a lot of actual animation and then just kind of like cuts that help to emphasize the energy and action that is coming from fight scenes in the game. Overall, I liked Arcwood route, and then when I was going into Seal route, I was kind of expecting a little bit more, because Seal route does noticeably have a lot more lore. The way it is written, it ends up being significantly longer than Arcwood route, which I kind of don't like, in that for the main poster girl of the series, she kind of gets shafted in a way to where there's not as much story revolving around her. Seal route starts off quite solid, but one issue that I kind of ended up running into when it comes to Tsukihime Remake is that the game almost does feel like a kinetic visual novel in some ways, in that your choices don't really matter too much because of the way that the story is structured. You are forced to play the game how the developers wanted you to, despite the fact that you do have choices. I do enjoy the moments when you get a little bit of a break when you game over and you get to go to the transition of teach me Seal, and you get the little bit of comedy dashed in with telling you, oh, you messed up, go ahead and go back and do this. I didn't run into it that many times, but I think in general that way of how the game progresses does kind of clash with the overall storytelling and kind of like how they present the game, because of the fact that there's choices. When you get to the end of Seal route, you are, regardless of whether you made all the right decisions or not, you are going to be forced to go back further into the game and replay it again anyways, because of the fact that there is a bad ending. And what happens is that multiple times throughout the game, actually, but this is like the most pivotal point, is that you will see both dialogue options on your screen in the moment, but one of them will be grayed out, so you are spoiled as to what that correct dialogue option is, but you are not able to actually click it. And that's why, so you have to see the bad ending before you can then go replay again and then play the true ending, where you unlock that choice and then you can play it again and then you can see both endings. I don't particularly like it. I think it just kind of sucks. I would rather it just not even give you that option at all, so that way the option shows up on a replay through. But then also, most visual novels that do kind of have that true ending don't require you, like if it's like a good ending and a bad ending, most visual novels aren't going to require you to see the bad ending in order to unlock the good ending. I can't really think of one off the top of my head right now. So I think in a way, I don't particularly like that Tsukihime Remake kind of forces the player to 100% the game, when, depending on the type of person, it's okay to play most of a visual novel, but not every. You don't have to see every line of dialogue in the game. So that's one peeve that I have. Overall, though, I do kind of like. But overall, I did enjoy my time with Tsukihime Remake, despite how much I have been talking negatively about it. It's kind of a different thing. I've noticed over time, the more like physical, action-oriented visual novels do kind of take a little bit away from the characterization in favor of being able to, put that element in instead, in its place. I did like the actual, most of the characterization, Arcwood's pretty nice. Seal, I've heard some things that she's kind of better portrayed in the original Tsukihime, but from what I read, she's alright. Almost reminds me a little bit too much of Chinatsu from Baldur's Sky in a way, which does kind of dock points. But anyways, I do think Tsukihime Remake, for what is available, is relatively solid. But yes, if you like previous type Moon stories, if you're going into this one, you should enjoy Tsukihime Remake as well. Do go into it knowing that by the time you get into Seal route, you're gonna kind of get handed a lot of lore that might be unnecessary because of the fact that it is an incomplete game, and then also expect a heavy amount of hand holding throughout that course of that route in particular. But anyways, it's going to be a relatively solid game overall if you package everything all together. I do think Tsukihime Remake is a decent enough read. Anyway, those have been my brief thoughts on Tsukihime Remake, or at least what is available to read as a current. I've been Wave, and I will see you guys next time.